When the subject of haunted houses or other eerie things would come up in conversation, I had heard my acquaintance say so more than once. In addition to not believing in ghosts, she and her sister had just moved into a brand new home. How come it would be haunted? A cemetery for Native Americans, a slaughter during the Civil War. Perhaps her sister was killing people and torturing them in the attic. Before someone moved on to the next topic of discussion, our buddies would always share their thoughts. I never really listened to her remarks. I had spent a lot of time at her place and had even stayed overnight a couple of times when I was too drunk to drive home. It always made me feel warm and comfortable. It was a beautiful ranch-style house that was kept up nicely. She had designed it in a rustic style and painted the rooms in lovely earth tones with her sister. There were lamps, firefly lights, and light-up signs everywhere, since my friend adored lights. There was nothing eerie about this house. I thus said without hesitation when she asked me to visit and water their plants and feed their dogs while they were on vacation. Oh, how I wish I had, though. I initially visited on Sunday afternoon on my way home from church because they had advised me not to worry about stopping by that day as they had gone on a Saturday. I entered immediately after my friend handed me the key before she departed. Rocky, their black lab, greeted me at the door and seemed pleased to see me. Before heading into the kitchen to get the dog's food, I lavished him with affection for a short while. What ought to have been the first warning sign was waiting for me in the kitchen. The door of one of the cabinets was ajar. It's funny. I pondered. It must have been pulled open by the dogs. I took their food, filled the bowls in the hallway, put it away, and slammed the cabinet door shut. To prevent them from opening it, getting to their food, and becoming sick, I thought I'd better place something in front of it. I took a dining room chair and leaned it up against the cabinet door. That should do it. Let's go on to what ought to have been the second warning sign. I went to the window to start watering after grabbing the spray bottle from beneath the kitchen sink. However, I saw that the earth became damp even before I started spraying the flowers. I gave it a quick touch, and sure enough it was. She must have watered them yesterday. Because they must still be damp. I should have known that if I watered the plants on Saturday morning and kept them in a sunny window all day, they wouldn't still be wet on Sunday afternoon. All of the plants were still moist when I strolled around the entire area. All right. I have one final task to complete. I made the decision to stay and spend some time with the dogs. I knew my pal wouldn't mind if I spent an hour or two somewhere else. I turned on the television and settled down on the couch next to their large, slothful pit bull body. The third red flag. I saw that Netflix was still visible on the TV's choose screen when the black screen dimmed. She seemed to have switched it off while searching for anything to watch. Even though it was odd, I ignored it and switched to a local news channel to get some background noise. Before I left for home, I played with the dogs for a good hour. When she checked her security cameras that evening, my friend told me she had seen me playing with the dogs and complimented me for paying care to them. Even though she had previously informed me that the house was equipped with cameras, I was still a little uncomfortable knowing that she had looked them over. I felt a little better after I told her about the cabinet door, and she informed me that they frequently did that if they were left unattended for an extended period of time. Around noon the following day, I made my way back. I brought my brother along because it was his day off. While I watered the plants, I thought he could play with the dogs. Rocky met me on the back terrace this time. He appeared upset, and we quickly discovered that something had blocked the dog door, preventing him from returning. One of the stools they had in their entryway had been knocked down and put up against the door as I opened it and pushed it open. It must have been overturned by the body. I agreed. As did my brother. While I took the spray bottle from the coffee table in the living room and watered all of the now dry plants, he picked up the stool and went into the kitchen to feed the dogs. I filled the bottle again and placed it on the counter after finishing in the kitchen. To keep the dogs from getting to their food, I reminded my brother to put the chair back against the cabinet where I had placed it. He said, there was no chair in front of the cabinet. Indeed, there was. Yesterday, I placed it there. As he shoved another chair against the door, he responded, well, they must have pushed it away too. Recalling my friend's joke about someone residing in her home, I became abruptly worried. Unsure of what I would do if the TV had been on something other than where I left it, I went to the living room and switched it on. However, it was still featured on the local news. I let out a sigh of comfort. Only the dogs are involved. They're knocking everything over with their energy. However, I wasn't totally certain. We went shortly after, so we didn't remain as long as I had the day before. That evening, I had dinner with some friends, and after a short period, the topic of my house-sitting job came up. While out in town, one friend suggested that we have a party. Someone else asked me if I had looked in the attic to see whether her sister had committed murder. However, our closest friend inquired as to whether I had heard any of the sounds that our friend reported hearing. She frequently claims to hear footsteps, as if someone were moving around her home at night. She claimed to have heard the cabinet doors open and close after she swore. This sent shivers down my back. I assumed she was being paranoid or joking, even though I know she mentioned someone living there. I'm not sure, although I haven't seen anything. She has mentioned that occasionally she wakes up to discover dirty cups that she didn't believe were there the previous evening, or her computer running Spotify or Netflix after she was certain she had turned it off. She has even claimed that there have been strange items on Netflix that she previously watched. After then, I didn't hear anything more. The ringing in my ears was too loud. Cabinets are open. Netflix is playing. Really, what the fuck? Although it shook me, it wasn't enough for me to realize that someone else was residing in her home. There was clearly a problem in that residence. The following morning, I had intended to stop on my way to work, but I overslept and realized I wouldn't have enough time. I would have to make a stop on my way home because of this. In the absence of light, I was plagued with dread all day. Being in that house at night was the last thing I wanted to do anymore, even though I had never felt unsafe or even nervous there. But what if she's correct? What happens if I arrive and find something? What if there is a person present? I made an effort to ignore the thought. Despite her intelligence, my friend had paranoia. I was aware of that. I was now experiencing unfounded paranoia. Her residence had no occupants. I'm hoping. When I eventually arrived at the residence, it was 8 o'clock in the evening. I knew it would be dark in an hour as the sun began to sink over the countryside. As a storm moved into the area due to a cold front, the wind was also starting to increase. As soon as I pulled into the drive, I knew I had to get in and out quickly. There was no use in remaining. As soon as I stepped out of the car, I could hear the dogs barking. I assumed it was because they saw me, even though this should have been another warning sign. Rocky and Body were standing in the hallway, growling and barking at the shadowed kitchen as I entered. My throat tightened each breath. I should go. Now. I pondered. Well, stop being such a baby. Nothing is there. Uncertain of what to do if someone was truly standing there, I stayed motionless for a few seconds before snatching at the light switch and turning it on.